Hi everyone and welcome to the HaPi podcast, Healthcare and Pharmaceutical Insights. Series 2 is all about a day in the life of. I'm looking forward to spending time with a variety of different people in the healthcare and pharmaceutical industry, discussing what it is that they do on a daily basis. So sit back, relax and enjoy. Back everyone to another session of HaPi. I'm really delighted that you've taken the time to join us, and we're going slightly off piece today in this particular episode. We've had a series recently on a day in the life of, and I'm really pleased that we're taking a slightly different angle today and welcome Mark Jones. And before we go into what the subject title is, I'm going to give the guys an opportunity to introduce themselves. My main objective will be to control these two guys today because they are both good, fun guys to be listening to and talking to, and have a lot to share that will help us all as we listen to this episode. So I'm going to come to you, Ian. First, you want to give us a quick introduction, a little bit about your story, and then Mark, you can do the same. So welcome to you both. Ian, I'll leave it with you to give us an introduction.
Thank you, Colin, and welcome everyone. Just where do I start? 30 years ago, almost 30 years ago, when I joined the industry, like many people, started as a rookie rep on a contract with Bristol Myers Squibb back in the early 1990s, and left BMS almost 20 years later as a second line manager. So lots of experience there, lots of different things that I did and achieved there through my time at Bristol Myers Squibb. Then moved to AstraZeneca, enjoyed my time there as well, in a similar role. And my passion for the success of individuals, teams, organizations, brands led me to, when it actually was something that I always wanted to do, was to look to move to the other side of the fence, so to speak, and work with a broader range of companies. So for the last 6.5 years now, I've been an independent consultant working with a number of different companies in the pharma and life science area, with a number of different things, in called performance related, key account management, selling skills, line manager development, coaching skills, etc., all things Salesforce effectiveness. And as I say, that's where my passion has always been, and I love continuing to do that to this day.
Good. Thank you. Over to you, Mark.
Yeah, but early 1990s, Ian. So you and I started at the same time. So I've got to ask you this: Do you have some hair in the early 1990s? And would anybody actually recognise you in this day and age?
I had a full head of hair when I joined the industry, Mark. Yes.
Did you? Yeah. So I'm not sure it's because you've been working with me over the past few years, or whether both of us have been working together. Because again, in the early 90s, I had a full set as well.
It was already on its way out when I met you, Mark. So
maybe we should get some pictures of before and after type thing when we put this episode out, just to show you what you still look like. I don't know. We'll leave that with you.
Well, I was hoping, Colin, with the advent of technology, you might be able to give us like a comb over or something.
AI is brilliant now. AI is fantastic. We can do all of that now. Yeah.
Well, like Ian, I started in the early 90s as well. And it was really interesting, I suppose. And it's something which has brought me all the way through, because when I left university, I left with a degree in construction, which I had no idea why I went into the pharmaceutical industry. But my ultimate belief at that exact point in time was I wanted to do something which helped people. Now, well, that was a very naive belief at the age of 21. But it did drive me into the industry, and with a typical career of carrying the bag as a rep, being a first line sales manager, national sales manager, coaching, training. I even had to go at marketing. I wasn't particularly good at that, but I had a go at it, learned the lingo, etc. But even to this day, that naive thought of when I was 21 about seeing a difference, helping others, making changes, that's what keeps me going. And like Ian, for the past 17, 18 years now, I've run a separate consultancy, again, which is specialised in pharma. I have had the opportunity to work with FMCG, Heineken, Kellogg's, to name but a few, and some finance institutes as well, just to get sort of a broader range of experience. believe it or believe it not, the challenges of those industries are still exactly the same as the challenge in our industry as well. So it's been an amazing time. Wouldn't swap it for anything. Learned a lot, and I think it gave us the perfect opportunity, Ian and I, on some separate projects to work together, but then obviously more recently to come together under the banner of Future CX.
Good. Excellent. I mean, you're both well known within pharma and names that are very familiar. So I am genuinely excited about this conversation because I think there'll be a number of people will engage in this and hopefully reach out to you for maybe expand on what you're going to share with us today as well. So really pleased that you've taken the time to come on to the podcast. So we're going to cover a subject title which predominantly has been something that you both, with myself, have thought, right, this would be a good area to go down, a good discussion area to look at. So the subject or the title that we're going to look at today is what got you to here will not be sufficient to get you to where you need to be. And I thought it was a very, very clever title and obviously something that means a lot to you both. And we're going to look at like 4 or 5 different areas within our discussion just now, which Mark and Ian are both going to respond to on that particular title. But before we do that, the first kind of point or question. So you both have very successful training companies, which people within pharma space know, and you've both shared there just now. So why did you see the need to set up Future CX? I don't know who wants to go first, but we'll maybe go back to Ian, since you've been waiting patiently there. So why did you see the need to set up?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, Colin, and I think Mark and I had already done some work together through our respective consultancies, so we were working quite close on a number of projects. And one of the things that struck us, particularly when COVID first hit, was that there needed to be a radical change in the way that, as an industry, we sought to engage our customers. And that's obvious. Everybody knows that. I mean, we're on a virtual call today. I don't think many people have done a virtual call in this way before COVID hit. So the technology, etc., was accelerated, and people were having to learn how to deal with it to get the most from it. And a lot of the work that Mark and I were doing separately and together initially during COVID was around how we're going to engage customers in this new world, whether it be soft skills, or whatever it was. But we needed to change, and people recognized the need to change. But what rapidly became clear to Mark and I was that, skills really important, and we needed to learn some new skills. We did as consultants, as well as our clients. The industry needed to learn them. And there needed to be new tools beyond the actual technology itself, but other tools that needed to be developed by our clients to continue to engage customers beyond the norm. But what struck us there was that those alone weren't going to get us to where we needed to be, hence the title of the conversation today. Mm-hmm. And it rapidly, again, you keep using the word rapidly, became clear to Mark and I that something drastic needed to happen. And we didn't know what that was when we first set out. We just knew that something needed to change. And that's where we started out with our research. So I don't know, Mark, if you want to pick up from there.
Yeah, I suppose the only other thing to add to that, it was a little bit of like, what are we doing now? What do we need to do now? But also, let's not just think about now. How are we going to pull that through into the future as well? How are we going to ensure that customer-facing teams, be they commercial, medical, or even marketeers who go out and see customers, or even the leaders, how will they need to behave now for success and into the future for success as well? And I think initially, and it was that future piece that drove us to delve into the research to actually try and find out, well, what is the answer to that question? Because of COVID, I think we found a lot of organizations found themselves obviously in a situation which we'd never been in before. Therefore, it was a massive fire to put out. Deal with it now. Let's deal with it here. And what we're trying to think is, well, great, but what's going to be out of that? What are we going to do when we come out of that? That was the only thing to add.
Did you find before we move on to the next point, but certainly you've touched on COVID there, and did you find that companies, whether it be in the pharma space or the healthcare space, they did take quite a while to really enhance technology, enhance new ideas, perhaps because they were slightly anxious about what the future held, really, for them as well? Did you get that kind of feeling when we were starting to come out the other side of COVID?
Yeah,
Definitely.
a lot of customers ask us what everybody else was doing, so which normally you don't hear.
Yeah.
So I think there was a high level of uncertainty in people trying to, quite rightly, learn from each other. But we noticed one or two companies were being particularly bold in their decisions and were seeking to find that pathway to that future state that Mark's just touched on. But it rapidly became clear that a lot of companies were just seeking to survive. I don't mean as in terms of the business to survive, but how do we get through this period of time, rather than how do we thrive through this period and into the future. And that's where we sort of started out was, okay, it's one thing to survive, but how can you make the best of this? How can you come out of this stronger? And that's in essence where the company was born. In that quest. Sorry.
Yeah, no, sorry, no, but I think it's funny, I'm just reflecting back now on where it all started, and I'm just thinking, actually, as a business owner, myself and yourself, we faced similar challenges as we've run our businesses over the past few years. Sometimes a little bit of feast and famine, sometimes a contract just drops, COVID hits, and again, I suppose it's that mentality that we had, and many other great entrepreneurs and business owners as well. How do you keep going in the face of adversity as an entrepreneur? What are the behaviors, what are the mindsets that you've got as an entrepreneur? Of course, we're talking outside of pharma and the industry here, but surely those behaviors that drive us to look for success in any opportunity, positive or negative, are those the types of behaviors and mindsets that we could start building within our own industry? I think that's a little thought process that I know I certainly went through.
Yeah. I think the word that we were trying to get across to to our clients on the recruitment side was you need to use the new ideas and new ways to enhance what you already have. Just to try and not be wary of it, not be wary of new ideas and new ways of doing things, and introducing people like yourself, from an external perspective, because we're there to enhance what we already have, and the reputation you have, the products you have, the people you have, the technology you have, as well. But sometimes there's a bit of a kind of reluctance or nervousness about doing it, isn't it?
It was interesting, Colin, because Mark touched on the word entrepreneur. So we did lots of research. We set out by what are the thought leadership articles that are, and I think particularly around McKinsey were prolific in the early stages of COVID, churning out umpteen articles each week, each month around what the future looked like. And this entrepreneurial approach became really, really clear very, very quickly for us. So, but the challenge was nobody really find. So, as I say, McKinsey in particular were brilliant in some of the stuff that they were churning out. But actually, no one publication, no one place could you find the route map to what that success would look like. Each was, had different ideas. And the work that we did over quite an extended period of time initially was to, can we find the sweet spot from all this work that everybody's doing, not only in pharma, but in other sectors as well, and piece together what could be that route map into that future state that everybody is looking to find.
Yeah.
And that's where we believe we landed with the behaviors that we identified.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Let's move on to the kind of second point that we want to try and cover together and get your thoughts on, and this is round about what you think organisations need to do because they can't do everything. And I think it's a really clever way of wording that. I'm not taking any credit for the wording of that question in any way, shape, or form. But I do think it's a really clever way, because they can, and we are in a similar position to yourselves. You're trying to support from an external perspective. So let's cover off that point together, and let's get your thoughts on that. So what do you think organizations need to do, because they can't do everything?
So I think, look, our pharma as an organisation is massive, as we well know. Everything from customer-facing teams, R&D, operations, project management office, all those. It's a beast. We know most pharma organisations are beasts. And our speciality over the years, and of course still is that customer-facing piece. How do we make that the best it can ultimately be, both now and, again, as we said, into the future? And of course, when we talk customer facing, be really clear, commercial or medical in this situation. And I think, if we were to probably reflect back on the past couple of years and prior to that, we could probably name the elements of where we've placed our focus: account management, selling skills, medical sort of excellence frameworks, engagement frameworks, those types of things, capability frameworks. We've probably placed our focus in using organisations to measure whether we're implementing brand strategy or not. And it continues every year, Colin. Every year it is almost the same, and again keeps on coming back to the title of the podcast. What got you here won't get you there. We've done the research. We know the 14 key behaviors that people will need to be successful now and into the future. So all critical, and we continue to do focus on some of these skills which are critical. But unless you've got the behaviours which sit behind those critical skills,
absolutely,
still going to have what you've got, just be a year later. That's what I'm going to start with, Ian. I don't know whether that's an answer or not, but it's a little being in my bonnet.
No, that's good. That's good.
I think one of the things to build on that is that if a pharma company, business unit, whatever has a plan for the future of their customer or commercial excellence, their customer engagement, however you want to define it, is be really honest with yourself. Is it different? Is it bold? Is it challenging? Is it entrepreneurial? Or to Mark's point, is it basically rinse and repeat what we've done before? The content might be a little bit different, but we're basically going to do, as Mark said, the same thing again. And one of the things that I would suggest is we need to simplify, not complicate the way forward. And one of the things when Mark and I set up Future CX, one of our core principles is that we simplify everything as much as we can, because the simpler things are, and there's lots of research around this too, shows that the simpler things are, the much more likely they are to be implemented and implemented well. So I think the first challenge for anybody from pharma that's watching or listening to this is, is your plan going to get? Is it different? Is it bold? Is it entrepreneurial? If it isn't, it's probably not going to get you to where you need to be. And is what you're looking to do, have you truly identified the things that are going to make the biggest difference, and focus with a simple, effective plan to make a difference with those things? And again, if not, then go back and have a look at it, is what I would say. And that's what we're trying to encourage our clients to do.
What kind of response do you get when you kind of ask that question? Because I'm 100% on board with you in terms of, what are you being bold? Are you being different? Are you thinking, out the box, so to speak, from that phrase? But what kind of response do you get from people when you put that challenge to them?
I'm going to chip in first, Ian, if I may, because what does always make me smile is that when we set up Future CX, obviously, as we would do with any business, you do your plan, you do your market research, and you get all your market research gatherings together, etc. And we did a market research on the word entrepreneurial within the industry. And I have to say, I was absolutely amazed at almost the resistance for that word.
Okay.
And people would say, well, you can't say that, because entrepreneurial means you're always going to be risky and, you're always going to push boundaries. We have lots of compliance and regulations and medical. And I'm sat there, I'm thinking, I know all that. I've been in the industry for 32 years. I know the barriers we fit in, and FMCG has the same barriers. Finance has the same barriers. Some grey areas, but the same barriers. But we spent an hour debating the word entrepreneurial. But ultimately, entrepreneurial just means really simple things like, makes decisions for themselves, can prioritize, is resilient in the face of, challenge, is maybe obsessed by outcomes and gathering people to perhaps achieve the things that they didn't believe they could achieve because they've not got the resources, but they're willing to bring those resources together. So in my mind, the simplicity of that is the word entrepreneurial just brings that together. And I always ask myself the same question. As a leader, would I want people in my team to be entrepreneurial with that definition that I've just given you? And of course, the answer would be yes. Of course I would, as probably everyone in this podcast would be listening to. And if they are listening and they're nodding, then entrepreneurial is the right word. And it doesn't mean going back to improving your closing skills or writing a solid objective or being inspirational front of the communicate customer. They're all really important, but if we've got the right behaviors, which I just defined before, people will automatically do that. And I think and I'm on a soapbox here now, and I've gone for it. I'm off for it. Because look, Colin, at the moment, what's the biggest word we often hear at the moment? And Ian will pick up on this one. Omnichannel. Wherever I go, omnichannel this, omnichannel that. Oh, Ian, what did we hear in Barcelona? I thought that was a brilliant presentation in Barcelona.
Yeah, omnichannel isn't a destination; it's part of the journey. Yeah, and that came from. I'll give him a name check because it was brilliant. Andrew Vins from AstraZeneca. It was we picked that up from him, and we thought it was a great way of looking at things. And I know Andrew won't mind us quoting what he said is that, unless pharma can get their heads around that, then nothing's going to change.
100%. Yeah.
And it's a beautiful link, actually. Obviously, we were in Barcelona for the Reuters event in April, and we attended a lot of the sessions, and there were some brilliant speakers, some amazing speakers, and it was a great learning experience for us. But the one thing that struck us both independently, we're in different sessions, is the number of speakers that acknowledged that something different needed to happen with our people to get to where we needed to get to. And then they went on to present their skills focus or their new tool, and there was lots around AI, which was brilliant and some really good stuff. But no one really tackled the shift that we need, the behavioral shift that we need in our people to make those tools, that AI, and the skills, therefore, work to their optimal. And, it was a really good few days that we were there interacting with people. To hear that a lot of people were on the same wavelength, to come back to your question, what do we often hear? People often hear that something different needs to happen, but they're too immersed in dealing with the stuff that they've done traditionally right now to prove that they're doing something about that, to lift their head above the parapet and say, we need to stop and we need to think and we need to do something differently. Yeah.
Are you starting to see any of that? I mean, are you, obviously without referring this time specifically to names and companies and people and all that kind of stuff, but or is it too early at the moment to see that, or are you starting to see people taking pretty bold, decisions or plans or change of direction?
There are some, yes, but they're still in the minority, Colin.
Right, okay.
I think there are some organizations that are ahead of the game with their plans around this, and there are some individuals within organizations that are ahead of the game and really understand that they need to do something different with this. But as you can imagine, trying to effect that change within any pharma organization is not easy, because customer engagement, customer effectiveness, and commercial success doesn't just sit with the customer facing teams. It runs right through the organization. So you're trying to elicit or trying to drive and support a behavioral change through an entire organization, not just a proportion of people that actually interface with the customers. So yes, people are getting it, but it's taking time.
So that actually does go on to our next point, that we're going to cover some of the challenges and opportunities that you've identified with your clients so far. You're beginning to touch on that at the moment. Do you want to unpack that a little bit more and give us a little bit more definition behind that, some of the challenges and opportunities that you've experienced?
Mark, do you want to pick that up?
Yeah, I can do. So I think, the way we've got sort of, so we use a system which we've designed and developed called E3, which is the Entrepreneurial Edge Evaluation. And this looks at 3 key domains around, customer fascination, outcomes obsession, and infinite mindset. Those are sort of the 3 domains. And then under that, each one of those sits a collection of very specific behaviors. So we're able to really have simple and total clarity of focus, back to your point, Colin, of where organizations should start to place their efforts to shift behaviors in order to move on that journey from success now and into the future. And I would say, and if that gives an overview, I would say something like probably inspirational communicator jumps out as one area of key focus, which sort of comes across the industry, and maybe also sort of clarity of purpose as well, Ian. Ian's on this one, Colin. I'm going to have to hand over to our data. I don't want to call him a data junkie, I think, here. So I'm going to hand over to him because he knows the ins and outs, because he always laughs at me because I don't.
I'm the one that does the detail, Colin. So, so 2 of the 14 behaviors Mark's just touched on there. So the one that we consistently see opportunities with, probably the biggest opportunities with most organizations. So we look at individuals, teams, organizational level analysis that we do. But for most organizations, the single biggest opportunity often is inspirational communication. Now, it is what it sounds like. It's how do we change the way that we communicate, both internally and externally, to move people, to get them to a better place. So one of the classic things that we see, one of the classic things that gets in the way of that is the way that organizations ask their people to communicate with their customers. When we think about external communication with our customer base, quite often we ask them and encourage them to communicate in a certain way. So we may be very brand focused or brand led, and we still see that quite often, even in 2023, whereby what we should be starting with is the customer and patient need, and then lead ultimately to the brand. It sounds obvious, but you will be surprised how often we see that with the other way around. So, my name's Ian from Company X, and I'm here to tell you all about the benefits of brand Y. That is still something that our customers, our external customers, are hearing an awful lot. So until we can change the way that we understand the customer's world, the patient's world, build enhanced insight, and then think about how you're going to use that insight to take the customer on a journey, we'll never start to shift. We'll never start to be more inspirational with our communication. So that's the first one. And then the clarity of purpose piece. And again, there's lots of people won't need us to go into this in too much detail. Loads of research to show that if an individual employee has a heightened sense of their own purpose, why they do the job that they do, and there is alignment within the team, within the organization, then that's where the magic starts. That's where you start to get people operating at even higher levels. So helping individuals and teams to understand their purpose and that alignment with what they do is a huge opportunity to drive and inspire performance. So they're just a couple of things that we see. And often people don't know how to change that. And the things that they measure and drive people to deliver on a day-to-day basis conflict with the behaviors that we want people to exhibit.
I think that communication piece is really important now, because we've got so many different tools that we can communicate with people, around, whether it be what we're on just now, whether it be, the old-fashioned phone, whether it be email, etc. But that, you're absolutely right. I mean, taking time and having that quality, as you call it, inspirational communication piece is really key, and as opposed to just that kind of blanket kind of mentality that's the way I've been told to do it, so that's the way that I'm going to do it. Still get the key messages across that you've been asked to get across from your marketing team or whatever. But the way in which we communicate with each other now is just it's changing all the time, isn't it? It's changing all the time.
So, yeah.
Well, it is, and I think back to I was on my soapbox about omnichannel before. If the team don't believe that omnichannel will help them with the business, then there's very little chance it'll be a successful rollout or implementation in any organization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And obviously, one of the other behaviors is embraces technology, and as just to build on your point, it's not about have you got the latest iPhone or do you enjoy the latest iPhone. It's can you see there's a need to use technology to drive your business forwards as a business owner. Mm-hmm. Again, we do see low scores in that as well. So again, from an organizational perspective, you can zoom in on that, do something about that, and the bigger effect, the bigger impact on that then would be people embracing technology, using it to drive their business, understanding what needs to happen. And omnichannel just becomes a word. It's about the behavior and the understanding of what you're there and can achieve with technology.
Good.
So, Colin, there's one last thing I just want to say on this section in terms of, so I think actually quite often organisations understand that they need to change. We've already said that we hear this a lot, but it's the understanding what to do. We completed the first part of a project quite recently with quite a sizable group of people actually in the UK, and the insight that we gave them as a result of the E3 evaluation, Mark mentioned the evaluation that we do around those 14 behaviours, was really, really interesting. And we had a conversation with the head of learning and development after we presented the initial results back, and he thanked us because, and I don't think these were the exact words that he used, but effectively what we'd done is we'd given him the key to unlock the capability that he'd been trying to drive for the last 12 months. Mm-hmm. So, Mark knows I like an analogy. Quite often we know what is behind the door, but we just can't unlock the door to get in to do something about what we want to get hold of behind the door. Yeah. And I think what we've been able to do with clients is to give them the key to the important doors for them to unlock that opportunity that maybe they've spent the last 12 months, 2 years thinking, how are we going to do this? How can we really make this work for us? And that behavior or that mindset and behavior focus is a different dimension, a different way to look at how you do that. And it absolutely is an enabler. Yeah. So I think, the more we can embrace that and think about that, then the more we're going to shift some of those barriers that organizations are seeing at the moment on that journey to the future.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. And again, that kind of moves us on to we're going on to a couple more points, and just as a reminder, what we're covering here is what got us to where we are just now won't necessarily get us where we need to be, and just beginning to kind of draw this conversation to a conclusion. Let's hear from you in terms of ultimately how you have managed to help some clients. So you've just touched on it there, Ian, as we get into that. So is there any specific examples, practical examples you can say, we've managed to do this in terms of helping clients change?
Go on, Mark. Yeah, so I'll just kick us off in. So I think, for us, it's about 3 steps: evaluating, developing, and embedding. Because obviously you want sustainability, which is the long-term piece, of course. So the evaluation for the E3, brilliant, identifies clearly and very specifically what I need to do as an individual to be stronger, but also what are my strengths and how can I build on those as well. So I think that's really important. From an organizational perspective, where now can we place our focus and effort? So keeping things clear, specific, with some really simple recommendations. And again, based on how many years of knowledge now, Ian? 60 years of knowledge in the industry, knowing what things work, what things don't. And that's what gives us the opportunity to provide some recommendations. And Ian, I know I've given a bit more of an overview there, so maybe a bit more of a case study would help.
Yeah, I mean, just to pick up on inspirational communicator is the obvious one, because it's the one that we see as the biggest opportunity for a lot of our clients. Is where there's two ways that we can help. One is we have what we call the E3 Academy. So we have some curated content online our clients can access. So if an individual has a specific development need, they get access to our curated content. So that's articles, podcasts, videos, etc. That aren't just drawn from pharma and life sciences. They're drawn from a whole array of different backgrounds, different sectors, to really help to catalyze how people think about their development. And there's some assets that we provide alongside that to help drive that sort of that growth. So people can actually pick up the mantle with their own development from day one, rather than, again, no disrespect to our colleagues in L&D, we're the same. If someone gives you a challenge, it can often take you a good few weeks to come up with the solution to roll it out. With this, you can go from day one. This is what I need to do, and I can access that information, those resources straight away. I can make a difference straight away. So that's the first thing. But we can also support things on a broader level through, workshops, etc. And if we don't have the expertise specifically to support on some of those things, we have a network of people that can help. So there's a more hands-on approach that is available as well. But thinking about inspirational communication, there's some stuff that we've done around that, which is really helping, I would say, key account managers, medics, market access people in some of the teams that we've worked with, and their managers, to really think through it. Do I have the insight that I need? And having generated that insight, do I have the capability and the mindset to then think about how I'm going to use that? So we've seen some real shifts in the way that people are approaching their customers, and managers are supporting that through their activities, through their coaching, etc. But also working with marketing teams, medical affairs teams, to ensure that the assets that are being provided to support those customer-facing conversations are aligned with the direction of travel that we want to go in. So I'm not going to go into any real specific examples.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But you can see how we're sort of building that, to Mark's point, that sustainable change in behaviour that may not otherwise be achieved around some very, very clear identified needs. And back to what we said earlier on, we keep it as simple as we possibly can.
Definitely.
Yeah. To that, because when you said that, it's keeping it as simple as you possibly can, almost in some ways, kind of bringing it back to basics, if you know what I mean, and really expanding and enhancing that from there as well. So, so good, excellent. And then just to kind of bring this to our conclusion, so what's next for you both in the business? Let's hear a little bit about what's happening within Future CX and the business.
Shall I take that one, Ian?
Go for it, Mark.
So I think, like any customer-facing person would do, and I'm exactly one of those. We've got to keep our customer at the the forefront of the focus. So I think one of the things we're definitely aiming for in the business is building a sort of a customer portal, where the individual owner of the project around building the right mindset and behaviors could have easy access to a lot of the information that we've been talking about. Just keeps things nice and simple. So we've had a lot of feedback on that. So that's definitely something we're going to be focusing on. Version 2.1 of the evaluation, we're building towards that for an early launch next year. Again, based on some feedback that we've had from our clients and customers and some of the users. So again, trying to keep everything customer focused. And I can't, he's not on this call, but our CTO, Cliff Aegis as well, he's an absolute demon when it comes to artificial intelligence. So although we have some artificial intelligence sitting behind a lot of the things we do at the moment, I know it's a hot topic in his mind. So he would shoot me if I didn't say a big chunk of our focus is going to be on how do we create some of the recommendations, but based on all the evidence and the data that we're gathering. Can we be even more accurate and even more simpler than we have been? So those are probably our 3 big chunks of things we're going to be doing over the next probably 6 months or so.
Good. Excellent. You want to add anything to that, Ian?
Just continuing to challenge the behaviours that we identified through the research. So the research hasn't stopped. So, as an entrepreneur, continuous improvement, always looking to the future to test if what we're doing is still the right thing. So Mark talks there about how we deliver what we deliver and the plans we have around that. They're very, very clear. But we're also still continuing to challenge are the behaviours that we've identified still fit for purpose. And if new behaviours emerge, the ones we need to change, then we're absolutely up for that as well.
Yeah.
So
I suppose that's the piece here, isn't it? We know that's probably the royal we, us, and everyone else listening to this podcast. If you've got the right mindset, you should get the right behaviours. You should get the right level of performance that you're after. And it's just that mindset we need from the research we've done. That mindset just happens to be called entrepreneurialism. And if we can evaluate, develop, and embed that in our individuals, teams, and organisations, the industry as an organisation, we're going to be in a stronger place, and as an industry, we're going to be in a stronger place as well, and ultimately with a patient at the end of it.
It's almost full circle. When I started in the industry back in the 90s, I remember one of the things that we were encouraged to do was to act like an owner. And what we're suggesting with this entrepreneurial mindset and behaviours is no different. What the difference now is we have a clear blueprint, not easy to say, a clear blueprint of the behaviours that you need to be aware of within yourself and then prioritise to develop to be able to act like an owner. So this territory, this region, whatever your job, what would I do if this was my own business, and how would I go about creating opportunities, and B, then obviously acting upon them and making them work for me and my business and my customers, of course. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff. I think back to the 90s, some things haven't changed, but a lot has changed, and how we get there now is becoming a lot clearer, certainly from our perspective. So that's what I would add.
Pass on. It's really important, I think, in these sessions I have with everybody in yourselves as well, just to offer some practical advice and some help and some guidance, as well as all of the background that you've both eloquently shared today in terms of what's happening within the business, how Future CX and E3 in particular can really help sales teams and managers and many people within pharma companies enhance what they already have and make it better. And just that message of stripping that back a little bit and keeping it really, really simple as well. So this session will be live for everybody soon. Your website's futurecx.co.uk. So I would encourage anybody who, as you've watched this today, go online, take a look at the guy's website, reach out to them individually. They'll be tagged in this post as well. And hopefully those that have been watching have taken some inspiration from it, and we'll reach out to you. Gents, thank you both for your time today. It's been a real pleasure, everyone. And we'll obviously talk very soon, but do reach out to the guys if they can be of any help to you. Thank you, guys.
Yes. Thanks, Colin.
Thank you.